Cool. So today I want to talk about this ETR offering called Data Insight Services. And we are in a lot of ways already doing this, but the goal for kind of formally announcing it is that we want to include it more in the process, kind of enhance what we're doing. I'll explain, of course, what Data Insights is in this talk and give a few examples. But yeah. So as I was saying, we want to talk about this newish offering and how it fits into the process, explain the benefits of these services and when we can use them, how it will fit in at ETR in the future, and then at the end, maybe just have an open discussion and talk about where we think this is going and if there's anything that needs to be included or not included and how we can best utilize this. So what exactly is Data Insight Services? It's an umbrella term that we're using to describe the following services. So usability testing, information architecture testing, which we're doing a lot of, and also impact measurement, which we want to do more of, which is basically about measuring goal completion for our clients, as well as maybe trying to get some more data on visual design. As well as the impact and the ROI that our UX has. So kind of going beyond just doing the testing and also coming out of it with some actionable, like interesting metrics that we can then use to show the impact that we've had and also kind of validate future work and say like have more hardcore numbers that explain the impact that we've had. So it's in quotes because we've also written a companion document explaining these services. And so this is a quote from me that I wrote in that document, but we're just basically wanting to go beyond assumptions about what the best solutions are and instead creating these research-backed measurable insights on what truly works and what can be improved to increase value. So why data insights? That would be because testing our designs and measuring their impact, it makes us better designers, better developers, and creates better products. And we're also living up to one of purpose-driven design's core principles, which is you can't guess your way to credibility. And just a recap of what that principle is about is basically we're saying we believe an unverified fact is just an opinion. Incredible designs are based on facts, not opinions. We want to leverage data to verify assumptions and test our designs often. This helps us ensure that the things we create behave the way users expect them to, right? So we've already got this written in our core language. You want to make sure we're living up to it. It's really valuable for our clients to know how their users think, obviously. It can give a perspective that they didn't have before, and we definitely want to be able to offer that value. We can prove our effectiveness with numbers, whether it's showing our current clients the impact that we had or being able to sell to future clients, showing the effect we've had in the past. And of course, it's a valuable potential upsell, and not just for current projects, but it's also kind of instilling this idea that we might want to have more of a long-term relationship to do ongoing metrics on these projects as opposed to just jumping off as soon as we're done, when we've launched the site or the product. This is a sticker from the event that I was saying I was at this week. If you're not checking, you're guessing, and that's basically at the core of what we want to offer with Data Insights. Also, on a note of the term Data Insights, I did a little research into the SEO behind this, and while not a lot of people are searching explicitly for data insights, people are searching for the services underneath it. And so I think that offers us an opportunity to have a unique name for our grouping of these offering, but doesn't really distract from getting SEO value from people searching for these services that are very common underneath it. You know, I saw other terms out there, possibly like data-driven UX, which I think might clash with purpose-driven, you know, but the term data insights in itself could be open for suggestions since this is a new grouping, but that's what we're going with for now. So I want to talk about all the different ways that data insights can be incorporated into a project, and I'll have some examples of these and some from projects we've already done as well that can show how we're already doing this. So first, in discovery, one of the ways that we can use data insights at the beginning of a project is to run an initial usability test, which is basically, instead of, we do a lot of usability testing currently during design, but a way that we can better utilize this tool in discovery is to kind of create a baseline on an existing product, just to see where we are and to identify problems with the current experience, as well as figure out ways that we can enhance it in the future. And the way we would do that is just to work with the client to understand their target audience and the primary use cases, and then recruit and test users to complete that task with the current design. And with this way, we're able to identify what's working, what isn't before we get into design, report any unexpected results, and use the data to fix those issues once we get into design. Also, with initial information architecture, a lot of times we do information architecture where we're just kind of going off of best practices, and we can, with initial information architecture tests, we can test the product's current navigation and kind of use that as a baseline so that we understand the individual users coming to this particular product, and test the product's current navigation. I'm sorry, I can't get back into it. And test the product's current navigation, usually via tree testing, to determine how easily users are able to navigate the pages they need and where there's confusion. And then we can use this information to inform our IA in the redesign. Another way we can do this, we can use data insights, is with goal completion analysis and setup. So a lot of times analytics are really important to our clients in order to start tracking these KPIs that are important to the business. And a lot of times we have to make sure that those analytics are actually set up before we're able to start tracking that. So at the beginning of a project, we'll go into the analytics and make sure that we are tracking the things that are important to them. And then later we'll be able to implement any necessary, we'll be able to reference those analytics and see what changes we've been able to improve upon. Then there's visual design testing. So this is something that we don't do as often right now, but could be great to get an initial perception of the brand, kind of with logo tests or just brand like analysis, and then use that data to inform the visual design going forward. And another way just to get data in the beginning rather than just going off of our intuition, just as a complement to what we're already doing. So here is an example of how we can use this data that we get in the discovery phase to kind of predict for our clients the kind of improvement they might be able to see. So in this example, we can say, like, let's imagine that there's a company with this many potential shoppers, they have an average spending value, and we think that we can improve their cart completion rate with a better design. So rather than saying, this shopping cart you have is kind of like badly designed, or the usability is not great and we think we can improve it, and then just end it there, if we are able to have this data, which we can get from doing an initial test or just looking initially at their analytics, we can then start to predict the improvements that we might be able to see and actually translate it to the value and the KPIs that the business cares about. Okay, so that was in initial discovery, but we can talk more about how we can apply these insights to the design phase. So usability testing throughout design is something that we are getting better at doing. And we think that there are a lot of different ways this can be applied even further throughout the design process, including like after initial wireframes, the first designs that we come out with to get early feedback, make sure we're on the right track, course correct early if necessary. Again, if we're running, if we did a previous test, of course, you might want to make changes and then test again. So that's another way we can do it. Another example is if there's just a small design debate, like over a single feature, and it's kind of like two groups maybe have like a different opinion or we're not sure, you can just run a really quick test to get a data-driven answer. A/B tests, of course, to test two different versions. If there are, is two different versions that might make sense, and we want to see which one performs better. And to test branding during visual design to gauge a user's perception and level of understanding of a concept that we've come out with. So here's an example of usability test we did with a user. The person I'm talking to is a user or a potential user of the product. We used Respond.io and Proto.io and just kind of walked them through a prototype and had them use it as if it were a real product. And what we learned from this was we got a better understanding of the audience's perception of the brand and how they expected the process to work and where the instructions could be clearer. Here's an example of a quick usability test where we just had like one interface idea where we were kind of not sure how users would expect to use it. So what we did was we did a quick poll with like about 40 or 35 people and easily got an answer on how people expected it to be used. This is an example of an A/B test where we actually had 4 designs with slightly different variants go head to head to determine which will have the greatest profit value. Another example of a test we could use is card sorting, which is really valuable once we're starting to get into defining the navigation structure. Before jumping into a structure, we can see how users themselves would choose to group those items. And the way you do that is there are tools like Optimal Workshop where you can give users like a bucket of lots of different terms and they can sort them themselves either with predefined categories or make their own categories. And that's just a way for us to see how people group things before we design the nav. Tree testing is similar. It also has to do with navigation, but the difference here is that we have a structure in place already, and we want to see if people are able to navigate and find the things that they need when they're only looking at the navigation structure, kind of divorced from the design. So here's an example of this, where we asked the same question with two different designs of the navigation, and there was a clear winner here. You could see that the second one is like almost 10 seconds less, a greater success rate, greater directness, and this is just something we wouldn't really be able to know if we had just gone with our first gut on a navigation. First quick test is also good for navigation, but this time we're actually starting to consider the final visual design in the context that that provides. So this is an example of a test that we did with a client, and we had 2 different versions of the navigation. And it's clear to see here that one version has a lot less hotspots, a lot less areas where people are clicking. We were able to see which navigation is more effective at grouping the information in context of a menu with the visual design. And so further talking about visual design testing, this would be a great way to just kind of A/B multiple brands and options and to understand the perception. And if we pair that with discovery, we can see if our redesign is making the impact that we hoped it would, if we have a baseline from discovery. So here's an example of just a quick survey that we were able to do with a logo to determine the perception and which was favored by the audience. So then finally, we've gone through discovery and design, and now post-launch and ways that we can use data insights after launch. So there's usability testing on a live product where there's always going to be differences between a design or a prototype and a live product where people are entering real data. So we can do usability testing on the live product with users to make sure that there's no usability issues, or if there are opportunities for like small tweaks or improvements. Then there's the goal completion ROI analysis, which is basically we are following up on our testing we did in discovery, and then a month or so after it's live, after we've had the time to collect the data, we can return to the analytics and analyze and determine the improvements that have been made. So here's an example of one of these we did with a tool, Pulse Insights, which is basically an on-site micro survey. We ran the test before and after, and we're clearly able to see some improvements. And the last one there was kind of a visual design test where we gave users a bunch of different words that they would use to associate with the brand, and saw an increase in the positive and decrease in the negative. Then there's post-launch micro-surveying within a product, which is basically a way to kind of, if you see those pop-ups where it's like, did you find what you need? Or things like that, just to see if there are any like small issues that arise or to assess visitor perception. And finally, there's visual design impact measurement, where we can, thinking about what I just showed with the previous example, we can ask people questions and analyze the overall impact the visual design has had. So here's an example of determining return on investment for a UX change after we've gone through the project. Just an example, but imagine that we took some Google Analytics or something before the project and saw that a task was like an average of 60 seconds, and we were able to determine like how many hours that might cost like an employee who has to do that task, and you can easily like calculate from there a savings and kind of report back both to the client and then, use as a metric going further about the impact we've been able to have. So here's a recap of those offerings, what we're currently hoping to start like pitching or selling. And of course, they can be split into different packages depending on the needs of the business and how, what their capacity is. And the goal here really being for everyone to start to think a little bit more about these testing options and how they could improve the design and the development of the products, and think about where there are opportunities to start using them. So yeah, thank you.